Hi, Assalamualaikum. Welcome to Emperikal Unplugged. First of all, if you guys are new, we are Emperikal. And don't forget to like, subscribe. Baru-baru masuk dah suruh minta subscribe. But today we have a quite interesting topics. And first of all, welcome 2025. And in the studio today, we have Aliff Mazli. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, guys.
Salam sikit.
Salam sikit. Like we don't see each other, you know.
Alright, so today's topic is basically it's I can call it macam things that a lot of people doesn't know about. Just people knows, and then for people yang baru nak buat baru nak start their own business, this will be one of the things that the main problem will be lah. Alright, and to understand that we Emperikal have been working with quite a lot of big brands, small SMEs and also big brands, but there's always a new things that we learn for each of our clients, because each client tak sama, right? The way we learn, the way we execute our things, the whole things is different, totally different. Alright, so Aliff, I believe you've been in the industry for quite some time. There's a lot of brands in Malaysia, globally pun ada juga, right? So can you bring us, like, bawa kita understand what's the big difference between big brands and also the SMEs?
Okay, thanks, Faiz. Basically, that sets the stage of where we want to take our discussion to, right? So I think because recently we have probably some of you have seen some of our ads before that we're launching right now, and what we're actually promoting is that we want to work with a lot of SMEs, and a lot of these are in e-commerce space, right? I think one of the reason why we wanted to do this is because let's go back into history, right? So we started in 2017, and I think we have a lot of privilege back then. We had a partner that we worked with which kind of introduced us into, basically introduced us to a lot of those big brands. So that allowed us within the first few years in the business to work with top brands that basically they're household brands. You mentioned them.
Kalau you guys nak tengok the full video, kita letak ada dekat atas ni. Kita pernah cakap, right, that the previous video kita go through empirical history, macam mana kita start, and I believe a lot of things happening, and we learn a lot throughout this period of time, kan? And Aliff, you cakap memang kita dah pernah bekerja dengan banyak brands, and what's the big difference between these two?
I think the difference between these two, of course, the thing that we want to basically discuss and share with our audience today is basically a few things, right? So it's a structure, the strategy, and everything, and I think there's part number one, for example, that we learn. One thing that is pretty much obvious when you work with big brands, they have processes. So, which is very different when you work with SMEs, like for example, we big brands. For example, if you want to push out a content, and we do full service, right? We have SEO with social media. Faiz have done a lot of campaigns based on that as well. So the larger the brand, the more stakeholders that they have.
Yep.
And
the longer the process,
is going to be. I would say the deeper or the higher you have to go to get approvals and everything. So that's a challenge, right? So processes is one of the key things that we see, whereby when you work with SMEs, you don't have that much structure. So especially when we work with small SMEs, for example, maybe 5 different people, and the founders are still part of the team who are doing execution and everything as well. The people involved in the process are the key decision makers. This is what we see. So basically, when you ask for approval and everything, you give concept to them. They can just evaluate then and there, and they can just give you a green light or a red light then and there, right? So that's one of the key differences. So what to take away from this is basically, SME knows that there's a difference over here, right? And by the way, we're not doing this content here to say that SMEs are better than big brands and everything.
tak.
Big brands are established.
Ah,
You have to understand, right? So they have a significant market share and everything already.
Kita
But-
faham lah sebab kenapa big brands tak boleh buat macam mana SME buat.
Yes.
Ada sebab.
Ah,
Bukan,
there-
bukan
there's
kita
certain
kata
things.
SME lagi bagus, tak.
No.
Tapi ada sebab kenapa big brands buat macam ni, ada sebab kenapa SME boleh buat macam ni. So we want to make sure that this thing clear lah. Ada orang cakap.
And also another thing which is to give some encouragement perhaps, like for example small brands, they might think that I want to enter into this space, tapi sebab ada big player over there,
Faham, betul.
right?
Kita tak
Maybe
masuk
I tak boleh masuk dah.
faham.
So we want to share as well from our experience as marketer working with big brands also. There's a way for you. There's a way for you to participate in the market and be one of the players and eventually scale up as well. Yeah. Okay, so what we want to take away from this, right, is basically do not copy big brands, right? So you are at an advantage right now because big brands, they have the structure and everything already. It's part of the SOP, right? They have a legal team, they have risk management team. For, I would say, Sharia-based product, they have Sharia compliance team. All those kind of things. But when you do not have that, you do not have to work like them. And this will allow you to work easier as well. And this is the kind of advantage that you have at this stage. So make full use of it. So that's point number one.
So, macam you cakap tadi, kalau big brands, they definitely have a lot of stages. Kita ada Sharia compliance, kita ada compliance risk, kita ada the head of management, HOD, BOD, all those things, right? Definitely kalau syarikat-syarikat besar, especially kalau dia public listed company,
Oh yeah.
definitely the process will not be easy for sure. But for SMEs, as long as it stick to the CI, to the guideline of the company, it's good to go.
As long as you doesn't violate
The 3R. Kalau dekat Malaysia lah.
3R satu hal lah. And another thing also like as long as not fraudulent advertising, the product and everything is correct. You do not make like crazy claims that doesn't make any sense. And I think basically ethical advertising, that's good enough already. Yeah.
So Aliff, kalau macam tu, do SMEs should copy the big brands, macam the process and everything? What your take?
Definitely no, I would say. Yeah, because sometimes, like take for example, I was a legal advisor before, so I work in a Japanese company where they are process oriented. So usually you talk about result oriented, process oriented.
Yes.
They really believe in process, but you can know for sure whenever they make a certain decision to have gone through that process, the decision that they will make will always be right. 90%, more than 90% of the time, they will do the right call, right? But it will take a lot of time. This is why you see a lot of big brands, for example, just to call up, based on what you see in the market, let's say like big brand like Toyota and everything, you talk about the EV race, for example, right? They're quite slow to come compared to other brands who are slightly smaller than them because, which brings me to my next point as well, which is about risk taking. So process is very important, but as an SME, it's not essential for you for that time being, so make full advantage of it.
Sebab macam risk is one of the things that big brands always look into lah, right? Sebab they have reputation that they need to take care of. They have stakeholders that they need to take care of. Does the SMEs have the I would say macam kelebihan tak perlu nak tengok semua tu? Adakah SME ada benda tu?
I would say yes to a certain extent. Like take for example, like big brands, they always this we call as risk averse, right? Whenever they do something, they always have to take into account, okay, I already have a positioning, I already have a fan base, I already am clear like what are the market share and everything. So when I want to do something, I have to think, how is this going to affect my brand reputation? And if people go, for example, if for an offline product, if people go to the supermarket, what will help to make sure that they will pick my product rather than any other product, right? So a lot of brands, I mean, of course, this is just a blanket statement, doesn't apply to everything, because sometimes you do see some big brands that they do things that are a bit edgy. They take some risks, and for example, like Nike and everything, you see the ads.
Always fresh, always new direction. Tak ada yang
Always sometimes a bit more provocative even.
Betul.
Right, so that's what we see. But most other big brands, they're a bit more conservative in nature. So I believe that it's human nature as well. The younger you are, young blood, darat panas,
lagi nak explore
panas,
semua benda.
daring and everything, right? But then the more mature that you get, you're a bit more laid back and everything. You're more, I would say, careful.
Tapi macam you cakap, kalau does all the big brands should go out and do what Nike do, macam be more proactive, lagi push the market.
I mean,
or is it depends on the industry that they are?
Depending on industry is one of it, but I think the risk it's a risk-reward ratio all over again, right? Because, by the way, we're speaking here strictly from the perspective of marketing. All right. So we know that, when you do something that's risky and everything, there's always going to be publicity, and publicity is always good for business in a way. But there is a way that it doesn't work as well. Like, for example, I think one risky move that we saw a couple months ago is like what Jaguar did with rebranding.
Oh yes.
And then everybody took a stab at them. Even WWF, right? They did like, I think I saw an ad probably, we can find it and show it.
Tengok sekarang, ni.
The Jaguar thing. So that was quite fun. I think that one is one of the example of taking risks and didn't work really well. We don't know how it's gonna turn out in terms of market share, Jaguar's reputation, and also how it's gonna turn into sales. But I would say that for big brands, yeah, like it or not, they have that already. So it is right for them to take some precautions, of course. But if they want, my personal opinion is, if of course they want to interrupt the market to grab attention, taking some risk is worth it. You just have to be creative of what kind of risk that you want to be taking. And also at the end of the day, for example, if you want to provoke people and demand attention, how are you going to do it without negatively hurting the brand overall and eventually your market share?
So macam as we know, like the risk that the big brands take into account pun adalah disebabkan the big brands have a lot of team member. Definitely it's difference with SMEs, right? Macam SMEs sebab nama dia pun small medium enterprise kan, so dia tak sebesar the big brands. So how does this work for them? Does the SMEs can reach the how big brands punya achievement? Can the SMEs do the same things?
I think they can. Is it possible? Yes. But is it something that any single SME can do? I don't think so, to be very honest, because we look at the history. Like, for example, if you've heard of Dollar Shave Club, have you heard of them?
Oh yes.
Yeah, when they first started
US kan,
with that ad and everything, right? So they just did the ad and everything and tried to do something a bit different from what the market's already doing. Subscription based. Yeah, we actually worked with a brand in Malaysia that wanted to do something similar as well.
Oh, okay.
At that time they are going against Gillette, because at that time, you talk about shaver and everything, there's
Gillette,
nobody else, just Gillette. So they want to do something different. It worked for them. But I think to look at things from marketing perspective is not just about running a creative campaign that's risky, but at the same time it's also about experimentation. Like, for example, social media. Clients will always talk to us, okay, we want a social media strategy, and then you say, okay, you want to do Facebook, you want to do Instagram, and then they will ask you, we have Xiaohongshu, we have TikTok, and this is like 5 years ago before TikTok blew up. And now TikTok is a normal thing, right?
Semua orang TikTok dah sekarang.
But back then, before the pandemic, not really before the pandemic, I think 2017, 2018, we just started. TikTok is not really a common thing.
Yep.
It's just a bunch of kids dancing over there. Yep. Right? It's not what it is today. There's no TikTok shop or whatever. So for big brands, and we do have brands, that even today is not on TikTok.
I don't know why. I tak tahu sama ada diorang tak percaya kepada the platform, or the platform doesn't look prestige sebab they're big brands, like very very big brands.
So that's a challenge. I think it has to do with when you have like risk and compliance people into the conversation. They will say, America is pushing it and everything. They think that TikTok is spying on people and whatnot lah. So probably that's one of the reason. But this is not the case when you work with small brands. Work with SMEs, so you don't have risk and compliance team and everything, and if it's safe enough to use for personal use and everything, it's a decent app, for example, then it's okay. So that's why when you work with SMEs, you will see that a lot of them, they will be TikTok first. especially when the product is actually
Oh.
something that can be displayed or featured or demonstrated.
Betul.
But a corporate brand, they will always go like a Facebook or Instagram first. So they work slightly different. And some of the brands that we talk to, they even like, they want to go into TikTok, but for some reason I don't understand why. We want to do it like small scale only. We'll probably post a little bit and everything, which is to be quite fair, I find it weird, because if you're gonna be posting anyway and everybody else is doing it, a lot of big brands are there already. You're not the first one. In this case, if we were to talk about this 2017-18, maybe it makes sense. But in 2025, a lot of big brands are there already. I mean, the president of the United States used TikTok, right? Donald Trump uses TikTok and whatnot.
Pakcik-makcik dekat Malaysia pun pakai TikTok.
Pakcik-makcik pakai dekat TikTok and whatnot. I think it's just weird that it's still a point that some of potential client or some clients, when they talk to us today, they think that TikTok is a risky place. Yeah, so I think that's where it's slightly different when working with SMEs. They were more than willing to experiment. We work with brands that when Xiaohongshu came in, they wanted to go into Xiaohongshu. Like first thing they wanted to do.
People yang tak tahu Xiaohongshu ni dia same like TikTok tapi in Chinese.
They call it Red Note in US, right? In US.
Red Note.
Xiaohongshu means little red book. That's all. Yeah.
So I believe the point that you cakap ni, dia came with the next point that we're going to talk about, which is the money, right? As the big corporate company, they didn't go to the TikTok as how the SMEs goes, right? So the SME, diorang pergi kepada TikTok and they got like, public touch. Public do talk to them. Public easily can touch them and all, right? But that doesn't happen to the corporate, right? But in terms of the money, the corporate have the money more than the SMEs. So do you think that the corporate can overtake what the SMEs do nowadays?
Okay, alright. Is money a very important factor in advertising? First of all,
Yes.
the general rule is yes, right? The more budget that you have,
Lagi
more
banyak
can-
anda lagi
can
jauh
get.
lah anda boleh pergi.
Yeah, even on spending and not on social media, like from paid advertising, the more you can spend, the more you can do testing, the richer the data, the smarter the algorithm as well when you run the ads and everything. But I think, is it the only thing that will guarantee success, for example? And SMEs, we know they have some limitations in terms of capital, right? So they don't have, like, for example, I want to spend like 10 million, 20 million, for example, banks. I want to spend 10 million, 20 million just on ads and everything every single financial year. They don't have that. But I think with that kind of disadvantage that brands have, they can still do something that I would say is something that is not common for big brands, which is authenticity. Like, for example, you may lack the financial power, but you're more personalized compared to big brands. So you always should take advantage of that. For example, the founder's face still show up and everything with a smaller team and whatnot, right? So this is something that you rarely see a big brand do. They usually throw in money. They have sponsorships. They work with celebrities, like for example, brands like Nike to work with professional athletes and whatnot. They can throw like a few 100,000 a year or a few million a year even, right? To sponsor and get some awareness. But small brands, you can still get some traction, get some attention even without that endorsement. The thing that you have to do is just to be a bit more creative in how you talk to the consumers.
Okay, Aliff, so the next point, I would say the big brands have the big team. Regardless, the SMEs has basically like sometimes one people running the whole business pun ada juga, right? Ada juga, like they do everything daripada design dekat Canva, pergi buat ads, cari produk, cari klien baru, semua dia buat daripada A sampai Z. And definitely the big brands, diorang rely on the data. Diorang rely on the agencies that they work with to achieve the best result. So how about SMEs?
Okay, so for SMEs, resources is a challenge here, right? So they have small resources. So how do they counter that? I think they have to look at the advantage again. Like for example, of course, big teams, they have specific people with specific role to do specific thing. Like for example, they have digital marketers to do this. They have procurement people to do that. They have finance people to chase for invoice, blah blah blah. All right. So they're lacking that. So I think if you do not have that kind of resources, do not try to compete with big brands in that sense, right? You cannot compete in the same spot if you know that you don't have that same advantage. So I think look into what can actually build your brand better. So go back to the customers. So that's what I think is, what SME should be doing. So getting engaging directly with your customers can be something that be very beneficial in a sense. Like for example, big brands you probably never gonna see, and not probably never, you have seen it. Like for example, Shell tried to do that with the Pakcik Shell.
Oh yes.
They have the management and everything to talk to the consumers and everything.
Tapi Aliff macam Pakcik Shell, diorang macam Shell sendiri diorang pakai face of their boss, right, to be macam Maidin pun antara
Yes,
a
they
good
did that as
marketing,
well.
right?
Yeah.
So how does these things can relate the psychology for the consumers itself?
I would say that it goes back to authenticity and also a personalized brand, because when we talk to brands, there's logos and everything, you don't see the face of it, so people will look strictly about the product and everything. But SMEs, they can do these things. They can make sure that people know who are the people behind it as well. Like for example, human nature, if you know who are the people behind it and you like them, you're more likely to buy from them rather than, for example, this is pretty basic example.
Human nature lah, macam.
If you see two different shops that sell the same goreng pisang and then both are equally good, right? But this one is very friendly to you. This one not really friendly. You just say price, whatever you want to buy. You're probably gonna go to this one, right? So pretty much the same principle. And a lot of brands, the interesting thing that I see that is there are some of the big brands who are willing to take this risk, and not risk in a way, but of course to test out this strategy. Probably a better word to describe it, right? So they're taking a more personalized approach, which I think like on social media, to me, Maidin is like the grandmaster of social media. They're on Twitter, they're everywhere. And then the Maidin CEO is there as well, doing TikTok dances and everything. People love it. So how does that translate into sales? We have to see. Does it work for every single brand? We have to see as well. But I think when it comes
kita tak boleh nak pakai the same strategy for the whole scene of industry kan.
Yeah. For example, Maidin realized that because like for example, Dato' Wira from Maidin. So he's a very likable character. Like uncle, like atuk-atuk and everything. Friendly
uncle yang
very
kita boleh
friendly.
talk to, right?
Yeah.
Very
So
approachable.
whenever he goes out on social media, people like it.
Yeah.
So there are certain brands, maybe the person does not have that personality. Doesn't mean that they're not good people, right? They just like a very different persona on social media. So maybe a bit more serious and everything. Maybe it's slightly different. So SMEs can do this, right? And you don't have to worry too much. Plus, when you're a small brand, you don't have to be too concerned about, if I go out and act like this on social media, what are my stakeholders or shareholders going to say? They don't have to worry about that, right? They probably just have to worry about what the jiran is going to say, right? And if the jiran doesn't pay the bill,
Kalau saya jumpa family aku, apalah family aku cakap.
Apalah family aku cakap, right? Just that, right? So they can do this. They can do direct customer access. And I see, like for example, good like top creators as well, like Karo Ami. He still reply to comments and everything and do TikTok video directly about it. You see, they're using social media, for example, in a way that is supposed to be used. So this is where it's very good as well. And I think SMEs should do more of this. Have direct customer access. When you respond, when you create content, you can respond to that directly. And then when it comes to DMs and everything, you get inquiries and whatnot, you can respond to them quickly and everything as well. So this is something that you can do better than, I would say, bigger brands, because usually bigger brands, for example, customer service team, they work on a schedule, so time and everything. After a certain hour, they do not work. They have an SOP. But a founder can, people message on a Saturday night and just, I'm free, I'm just watching TV or anything, just chilling. A customer messaging me, okay, I just reply whatever you need and everything. So you can do that, and this is how you can be a bit more different. And take advantage of it.
As you said, we start as SMEs. Then I believe that there is a way how SMEs can scale faster. So is there any tips or tricks that you think worth for you to share?
I think scaling faster depends if we are talking whether like from the business perspective, like advertising perspective. When it comes to scaling faster, you can use whatever advantage that you have. And this is a general thing, by the way. You probably have for example, like the founders who are constantly look at content and everything. You probably know this already as well. As an SME, you have less structure, you have less process. Your risk appetite is high, it's bigger, right? So be faster in decision making. Test a lot. Do a lot of testing, see what is working for you, and then you have to respond to the market. And I think one of the things that they have to do as well is to respond properly. And after that, when you find a sweet spot, and I think there was basically a creator. I watch social media, right? So you can do a lot of testing, and eventually, when you found something that's working, do 10 times of that. Figure out what's working, and everything. Eventually, you can scale fast. And then, unless and until you get to a point when the structure is really really big, you have to keep that mindset of a startup, basically, for lack of a better word.
Okay, so I believe there's a lot of things that you guys can learn throughout this video. For you guys, the SMEs and also the big brands, if you are watching this video, I believe there's a things or two that you can get it from the marketing point of view, because that's what we do here. We do a lot of social media agency, we do a lot of social media content, social media marketing, and also SEO, SEM, media buy, and also I would say that this is the things that we do every day. Then by knowing this, I believe that you guys can scale your business faster, and maybe can help you to touch the market more than by being yourself or genuine to yourself. And I believe these things works is because of we've been working with the big brands. I don't know what else can I say, because once you do it, then you will get it, like the framework, the process, and all. And Aliff, is there any last words from you for the SMEs out there?
For the SMEs, I would say, for SMEs and big brands, I would say, like, both sides can learn from the other. So for example, for big brands, we've seen some of them who are actually willing to take some risk, and I saw that this happen whenever they hire talent, which is the CMO or anything. The CMO has a certain kind of mindset where they're willing to, test things out and see what's working. They're a bit more aggressive in a way. So when you have this kind of leader in the organization, I think that's why you see big brands can do these things as well. So from marketing's perspective, that's something they should keep doing eventually, as long as you do not. My personal motto is simple: as long as it's not immoral, not illegal, or not unethical, don't worry about breaking things or testing things out. And then for SMEs as well, you're definitely at a stage where you have challenges. Right now, you're scaling up. It's not something that's easy, and we've been there, right? So make sure that you use your scale, your structure that is lean to your advantage. So there's a time to be structured, of course, and there's a time to move fast. So you just have to know when is that time, and of course take the right course.
I see. I believe that's all for today's interview podcast kita hari ini, and I believe there's a lot of things that you guys can learn about. For you guys who are new on Emperikal Unplugged, don't forget to click subscribe and click like. And if you guys think this sharing is worth your time, just share the video to your friends, or maybe your friends who are business owners and all, to get some insight from this video. Aliff, thank you again, and
thank you, Faiz.
To see you on the next episode.
Okay. Which we're gonna shoot right after this. Bye.
Alright, see you guys again. Bye bye.